On to day 5. It was an interesting day. I had read an article that today is Car-Free Day in Paris, and so the Champs-Élysées, as well as the first, second, I believe, third, and fourth arrondissements, are supposed to be closed to traffic. So I was excited. I was really looking forward to heading down and wandering the streets, being able to gather footage and photos without having to worry about cars, being able to walk in the middle of the street. And the reality turned out to be something different. First of all, I was there pretty much too early. I was there at 9 and it wasn't supposed to start till 10. But they really didn't get the Champs-Élysées blocked off till 10:45 into 11:15. And while there were certainly fewer cars, it wasn't car free. And that kind of threw my morning off, threw my day off. I had a certain set of expectations and didn't really stop and pivot around them. I didn't really have a goal, and so I wandered around. I kind of got to know the distance between things and realized things weren't as far apart as I thought they were. That's good news. Start to build that mental map of the city in my mind, which I really like doing. But I passed the long lines of people waiting for brunch, and if I'm honest, I was a bit resentful of the cars that were there and a bit resentful of the people manning the blockades that seemed to just let everybody through in my mind. And so it wasn't the perfect day, but I don't actually blame the city. I blame me. I think it's a chance to reflect on what my expectations were in coming into it, what I was hoping for, and what I wanted out of the day. And to really continue to focus on what I want out of this month, what this whole experience means for me. I think I can be guilty of chasing the shot, chasing the really amazing photo or cool video, a little bit of the here's how great Paris is, because I truly believe that. But I don't want it to be limited to just the pretty places, because I'll be the first to be really critical of the Instagrammers that are ruining all sorts of places because people just want to go take a photo of themselves, get the selfie, and go. It is truly one of my biggest pet peeves in tourism, actually, is there's a sense of shallowness and people that don't really want to get to know a place. They just want the external accolades of, look at me, here I am, to show off to their friends, to show off to their audiences. And I'm mindful of not doing that in this process. I also think there's plenty of things that I talk about that I need to reflect back to myself today. How often are we unhappy because of certain expectations that we had going into something that weren't met and maybe are nobody's fault? And is there any point in being resentful when those expectations were our own? What do we do when we have to own those expectations? I know many of you are in careers or relationships or have other aspects of your life where they didn't meet expectations. And it can be tougher when that can happen over years. We are often given a map, a set of cultural ideals on how we're supposed to live our lives, the career ladders we're supposed to climb, the properties that we're supposed to make our way through, ever improving, getting bigger and more um, detached and independent. We move from apartments to condos to houses, depending on where we live. Getting the next title, getting the next role, getting the next salary number. What were our expectations coming into a relationship, and were they realistic? And what happens now that we have to reframe that? This is so much of what our 40s and 50s are about, starting to renegotiate a lot of these deals. And so my day to day, very much a microcosm of our lives. I needed to pivot. I probably needed to take 5 minutes out and say, it's not car free day, at least not in the way that I was picturing it. Technically, absolutely. It had restrictions on it, and very possibly it reduced pollution, which was the original point in the city of Paris putting it together. but it wasn't living up to my expectations. But it was my expectations that needed to change. I needed to reframe, I needed to pivot. And I was also guilty of looking for something productive today. I couldn't simply let go and be in the moment and learn to love the city. Of course, it's beautiful. And of course, I love wandering amongst the architecture and all of the buildings. And yet, a little ways into it, I've taken many of the pictures of the Haussmann architecture, of the beautiful mansard roofs and the balconies and their symmetry and their perfection. And there isn't so much value in taking another 50 shots of what I've already taken. And so now I'm forced to reckon with what else do I want in this? How do I enjoy the moment? What will it take for me to go to a cafe and spend an hour? If there's one thing I have noticed wandering around is that every cafe has all of the chairs. Doesn't matter whether if it's one person or three people, all of the chairs face out onto the sidewalk. There's a little bit of a sidewalk theater feeling to it that you're coming, you're sitting, and you're watching. That needs to become part of my to-do list. That needs to be part of really enjoying the moment and being present in the way that I have been present at other times in this time away. And it's what I want more of, and it is still, I think, one of the biggest pluses of having made the changes in my life that I've made. I'm not running around with long to-dos in my list. I'm not enjoying a vacation time for a few short weeks with the back of my mind thinking about coming back to an overflowing inbox or a whole calendar full of meetings and a sense of trying to move things in a large and fundamentally challenging organization to get inertia in. I have that flexibility. I've made those choices. And this is a great reminder of being able to make those pivots, being able to really let go of where expectations aren't matching and figure out what needs to happen instead. And I do think it's actually not adding more things into my calendar. I am very deliberate and conscious that this is not going to be a month of a solid booked itinerary. I've had those vacations before and they're okay, but you also kind of come home really tired and you don't remember or enjoy it all. I almost got more out of my photos after than I did during at some points. I would almost enjoy a place more when I could see it through my photos because I was rushing to get to the next place and the next place. And it is a time of some disorientation. It's still learning what street matches which streets are parallel, which streets are intersecting, which metros interface with which metros, how to get where. Of course, Google Maps is very handy, but at the same time, it is not a perfect grid of streets. And so you think you're heading down one way, and sure enough, you're not heading down the other way. And it all takes time. And a booked itinerary, I talked to some people yesterday as I was going to Gallery Dior, and they sort of got mixed up on the buses and took them a good couple of hours to sort themselves out. And they had to start crossing stuff off their lists. And they were really sad about it. Things that they had carefully organized and planned for kind of all went out the window because they got mixed up. They got on the wrong bus to the wrong place, and it took them a little while to sort it back out again. And that's not what I want. I want an itinerary that's fairly open here. There's absolutely things that I want to do, but generally my rule has been one thing one day, if that, with some rest days in between. And so this is what I'm moving through. And there are going to be days that aren't perfect. That's just life. There are ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and today wasn't my best day, and that's okay. And there's a little part of me that's sad because I feel some pressure to bring you really great Paris every day, really great magic moments in the city. And they're there, and I will bring them to you. And there are other things planned for the week that I'm really excited about. And I think today is that moment of pausing, letting go, reframing, and still focusing on the positive. I was asked by two different people at two different times today for directions in the metro. I've been here all of 5 days, and yet I could actually help them. So, you know, I got 10% of my Parisian city card, and that's good. Getting the metro is kind of getting more and more comfortable, getting more and more familiar. I don't think about it nearly as much. It's coming more automatically, and I like that. These are the routines that I wanted. Things do change a little bit. There are things that are different on the weekend. Just down the street from me, there are some markets that pop up selling clothes and some other things. I've noticed that on Sunday mornings, the local bakery has a little set of ropes or velvet ropes kind of thing to manage a longer lineup and not interfere with the butcher's lineup, which I think is kind of amusing and pretty cool, actually, that they know on a Sunday morning they're going to get twice as many people coming in, and the line needs a little bit management because it stretches out their doors. What a great place to be. What a great problem for them to have. And what a cool thing to walk by. So all is not lost by any means. And as I say, I think there's just a lot of great themes in today, a lot of great opportunities for me to reflect and perhaps for you to reflect, for you to see the places where you might be resentful, where something's not meeting your expectations, but you're wanting it to change rather than you changing. And the more you're waiting on it to change rather than you changing, probably the more frustrated you're going to get, and the more it's going to feel like banging your head against a brick wall. I think it's also okay not to always know. I don't know how the rest of the week is going to go. I didn't know how car free was going to go. I'm still learning pieces of the cities. I still get things wrong. I still am learning what it's like to be Parisian. I kind of want to know what some of the big themes of the month are, why this is so important. And I feel some desire and pressure to give you something really neatly summed up about what this experience is all about. And yet we're only 5 days into it, and it's too early to do that. I have to go through the journey, and some of my impatience is showing up for me because I feel like I want to communicate something to you. I always want these videos to be useful and to somehow impart some wisdom, and doing that in the form of my experience rather than any definitive answers, definitive ways. There is never one way to do things. So I can let the day go. I can appreciate it for what it was. I can see the lessons in it and take a chance to reflect on it. I can think about what I might want to do differently this week. And I can also set my intention to have fewer productive moments, interestingly enough. I can choose on which days I may want to go and just sit with a great coffee for a while. And I can also leave space for that to happen spontaneously. I think some of the lessons and some of the balance for me is finding the speed of the city and the bustle of the city, and also finding the quiet moments. My life isn't stressed and over harried, and so I don't necessarily have to adopt that part of the culture. My calendar isn't overbooked with work and social engagement the way I'm sure many people's is here. It's a big city, people probably have lots of connections, and they work longer days here. They start a bit later and work later into the day. It's a rhythm that I'm slowly learning. And it's also a city of beauty, and aesthetics are very much prized. But I can also very much see it is a city of luxury. It is a city of shopping. And some of that is, of course, the areas that I'm in, the clientele and the tourists that they get through. I feel like I walked past 3 or 4 different Tiffany and Company places today, as well as all of the usual Dior, Louis Vuitton, Balenciaga, Miu Miu. You name the luxury brand, it's here. And it is very Parisian, of course, to have these luxury brands. But it can also drive a certain sense of materialism, of external achievements, of working and desiring dollars to be able to go buy that expensive handbag or suit or scarf or ring. And it's easy to fall into that. There is a very integrated style here. It all feels like part of the city. It all feels like so many of the window displays. And you see people coming out of these stores in and out quite a bit. And you have to remember this is not by any means the entire population of the city. This is that effect of seeing only a subpopulation and thinking that it is the entire population and starting to feel at times on the outside looking in. And I have to remember it's not who I am. I am not a very flashy, label driven person. I probably push back against luxury brands a little bit if I'm truly honest, but they're very good here at their visual merchandising. Those windows look fantastic. The stores are clean, they're well designed, they're fine materials. And it can get easy to suck it can be easy to get sucked into that. And so it's learning my way through all of those pieces, learning my way through what it means to be in this culture, which parts of it align with me and which parts don't, which have a certain appeal and which perhaps over time will turn out to be more of a veil or a facade than anything a little bit deeper. And it's all part of the adventure. So that's day 5. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm thinking about. That was my experience today. And I'm sure it'll all be different tomorrow. And we'll talk about that then. Bye for now.